seen the brawl that we are going to talk about in about 5 minutes or so, you can hop online, go to the team1260.com and click on our show page, Nielson and Chase, or just go to nielsonandchase.com. You'll see it in my blog section, British Brawl. You got to watch this thing. You got to hear the call. We're going to have the call for you when we come back, and then we're going to talk with
Danny Myers should get beaten to hell for that now.
One more time, phrase.
Danny Myers should get beaten to hell for that now.
That damn Danny Myers should get beaten to hell for that now. We're going to catch up with David Simms. He had the call. Phrase, you may want to start dialing that number now. Apparently, to get to England, you have to dial like 74 different numbers.
Pretty much, yeah.
We're going to get to that next. The brawl between the Nottingham Panthers and the Coventry Blaze. It's going to be good.
Danny should get beaten to hell for that now.
It was incredible. Go watch it online at theteam1260.com.
This is the Nielson and Chase Show.
Edmonton Sports Radio.
Team 1260.
6:27 in the morning. I'm going to say that just because the guy we're going to lives in England, and I want to find out what time it is over there. I think that's kind of cool. David Simms, he had an incredible call. Here, let's have it, Phrase.
And Jaeger and Lepine is going again. Come again, he goes. Come again. Lepine and Jaeger. Oh! And now Danny Myers gets in. Danny Myers should get beaten to hell for that now.
What did Danny Myers do that he should be beaten to hell for? We're going to find out. A wild, wild call. We've got the entire brawl posted on our website, theteam1260.com. Click on Nielson and Chase. Then just you'll see it on my blog section down on the right. It's titled British Brawl. And it's incredible, an incredible call. And we actually have a guy here who works for us who used to play in the league. Kent Simpson, you'll know him as the color man for the Edmonton Oil Kings broadcast. So he hooked us up with the man who actually called that brawl, David Simms from the United Kingdom Elite Hockey League. He joins us on the show. David, good morning. How are you?
A very good afternoon to you from Her Majesty's England, where it is 1:28 p.m. Over here, and a very good morning to you. It's amazing how that incident between Coventry and Nottingham has been on everywhere, hasn't it?
Oh, it's all over the place. Did you expect that, right after it happened? Were you thinking, okay, this might spread around the hockey world?
Not at all. I do the TV commentary for Sky Sports over here, so we get our million or so watchers for that. But then as a favour to my best friend, who is the coach of the Coventry Blaze, I do their web broadcasts, and that goes out to maybe 70 to 200 people, depending on whether it's a good day or a bad day. So it's a bit of a light-hearted broadcast. And then, of course, it was the next morning when all of a sudden somebody told me it was in Toronto, then it was in Edmonton, then it was in China, then it was everywhere else. But to answer your first question, what did Danny Myers do to Brett Jaeger? Brett Jaeger is the Canadian goalie for the Coventry Blaze. He stood on the red line. He's actually already crossed the red line and gone and fought behind the opposition's goalie's net. He's then come back to the red line. He's challenged a French-Canadian guy called Guy Lepine, and Guy Lepine was in the penalty box, who was involved in the earlier incident. And he's trying to get Lepine out of the penalty box. Lepine's having none of it. And all of a sudden, Danny Myers, who is the Nottingham Panthers captain, he comes from nowhere and he just blindsides the Coventry Blaze goalie. And then, of course, another eruption had happened. The first bench clearance had actually just about died down when all of a sudden that took off again.
What ramifications are there for you to say Danny Myers needs to be beaten to hell? Does anybody get on your back for that one?
Well, I got to be honest. Danny Myers is a friend of mine. I spoke to him after the game, and I said this. He says, "You know what? I expect to get beaten to hell when I play Coventry the next game." No ramifications for me. Plenty of ramifications. You see, us English people, right? We're in the middle of the cricket season here now. England are playing Australia in the cricket. But another colony, your good selves over there in Canada, you send all these ruffians over to us. Brad Cruikshank, who starts the whole affair, a good old Canadian boy who actually used to play for the same team as Kent Simpson in Sheffield, which was a team I worked for a number of years. He started it. He got 9 games. Alex Penner, he got 5 games. Danny Myers, he got 7 games. So the ramifications were, I think there's about 40 matches, 40 games in suspensions handed out after that.
Cruikshank, he's the guy that went at the goalie, was he not?
Yeah, he was the guy who went at the goalie. He was getting a little frustrated. He'd been tossed out of the game from an earlier incident. He'd been called on a minor penalty, just a hooking minor. Didn't agree with it. Gave the referee a little bit too much verbal, and he got the early shower call. So he was on his way to the gated entrance, which gets you out. Linesman never kept a hold of him, and he just escaped from the linesman and took a run at Craig Kowalski, another Canadian chap. It had all started in warm-up, however. What had happened was that Jaeger, the Coventry goalie, had gone down injured in warm-up. The Nottingham Panthers had found out that he was injured. And throughout the first period, they decided that they'd take a run at Jaeger. So every moment they could, Penner and all those guys were trying to bump into Jaeger, and Jaeger was getting no protection off the referees. And then Coventry kind of took it into their own hand when they had the chance and ran Kowalski. As soon as Kowalski was touched by Cruikshank, the bench is emptied and all heaven.
Is there a lot of fighting over there in that United Kingdom lead?
No. To be honest, it's probably normal. It's more North American than the other European leagues. You see, over here in the United Kingdom, in Britain, in England, we are not really European. It's a myth. We're nothing to do with the French, the Italians, the Germans, the Spanish. We have nothing to do with them. We want nothing to do with them. We are an island on our own. And we are a lot more North American-based. So that's why so many quality Canadian and American hockey players come over to England and ply their trade over here. The elite league's a good standard, somewhere between the East Coast League and the American Hockey League standard. It's a lot more physical than the other European leagues, and we do probably have a tough guy entertainer on every team. The Ottawa tough guy from many years ago, Denny Vial, for example. I'm looking at a photograph of Denny Vial, played hundreds of NHL games. He was the tough guy on the Sheffield Steelers team that Ken Simpson was a part of when Simpson helped us win the Grand Slam back in 2001, where we won all 4 competitions that season. And so every team has their toughness, but Ken Simpson was involved in a massive brawl. You want to see Ken Simpson in a bench clearance, guys? Go to Google Sheffield Steelers, Steelers, and the very first clip that you will find is a bench clearance against the Nottingham Panthers dating back to 2001. Ken Simpson's actually involved in that bench clearance, and probably there's been only 2 more bench clearances since 2001. So it's every 2 or 3 years we decide to empty the benches and shower it down.
You know, we were up here yesterday in our studio with Ken Simpson watching the most recent brawl, and he's like, you got to see the brawl I was in back in the day. So we watched that yesterday, and that was a wild one as well, wasn't it?
That was a real wild one. Again, you Canadian boys started that. Guys like Denny Vial, Barry Nykar, a guy called Scotty Allison, who was involved in the Sheffield team. I'm looking at it now. That was a tough team because as well as Vial and Nykar, there was Scott Metcalf, who was an American League captain for 4 years. Allison was a first-round draft pick of the Edmonton Oilers, in fact. Don't think he went on to play any games in Edmonton. Vial, lots of toughness in that team. So, it happens now and again, but only now and again.
I got a funny story. Barry Nykar, who's a tough guy, and he's a Saskatchewan guy, but he tried out for the Oilers at one point, too. And this guy is huge. Like Simmer and I were talking about it yesterday. He's huge, and he could fight. The Jaeger kid played hockey in the Alberta Junior Hockey League here.
That's right.
Brett Jaeger. And there's a lot of kids around here. Are you familiar with the name of Chris St. Jacques? He plays for the Edinburgh Capitals.
Christian Jacques plays for the Edinburgh Capitals. Good player, skilled player.
Yeah, he's an Edmonton kid as well, and it was
we like our boys from your end of your neck of the woods because you sometimes find that those guys from the Ontario, the Toronto guys, they're a little bit too meek and mild. Your guys are chew tobacco, spit it out, farming boys, and they just get on with it. We love your boys. We had a kid in Sheffield called Chris Siski. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He was a good old Alberta boy, and he was very popular in Sheffield. So we like our Western boys a little bit more than our Ontario boys, if we're allowed to say that.
David, it's funny because it seems like every time we're talking about a fight in this league, you point out that they're a Canadian guy that's starting the fight. Is there a lot of Canadian guys playing in the league, or are we just the troublemakers?
No, both. There's probably about 20 guys on each roster. Most teams carry 5 defensemen, carry 9 or 10 forwards. And you'll have up to 11 imports. Imports are basically anybody who's not English. I know over here in Europe, a French guy now can pass as an Italian, as a Spaniard because of the whole EU thing, but what we call proper Johnny foreigners, which are non-British guys, and we're allowed 11 on every team. Now, most teams will go for the Canadian guys, purely and simply because our league is more suited to the Canadian style. The language isn't a problem. And also, the Elite League teams have been very smart over here. They've got tie-in with schools and universities. So, for example, if you've got a hockey player who's maybe graduated, has done well in his education, we can get you an MBA course here that a player doesn't have to pay for. So as well as coming over, playing professional hockey, he also gets his MBA as well. So there's a lot of Canadian guys that have taken advantage of that.
These guys get compensated fairly well. Other than that, like for monetary, like cash.
No, well, they're not getting rich. Let's take you through that Nottingham Panthers team that was involved in that clearance. The cheapest import on that team would be maybe £400 a week. Now I think the Canadian dollar's about 180 at the moment to the pound. So times your £400 by 1.8. He'll get that for 32 weeks. He'll also get a house. He'll also get a car, and he'll get a flight over here from Canada. If he's very good, he'll even get a flight home at the end of the season as well.
Hey,
there's been a few that have been sent back home on the boat, I can tell you.
David, quickly, last one for you. How popular is hockey over there? When you mentioned cricket and obviously soccer, I mean, how far down on the scale would that United Kingdom League be?
Well, of course, we don't play soccer over here. We play football.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You guys just have got another word for it. Football is miles and miles and miles ahead of any other sport over here. Cricket and rugby are probably the next sports down. We are a minority sport, but we are probably the best watched minority sport. So out of hockey, baseball, basketball, hockey is the biggest one over here. The cities that it's played in, it's very popular. In Nottingham, they'll get 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people. In Belfast, where the Boston Bruins actually went and played an exhibition game at the start of this season, you'll get 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 in there. In Sheffield, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 there. In Coventry, it was sold out in that barn there, just under 3,000 for that game that you've been watching the video clips of. So where it's played, very popular. Poor old Chris and Jacks gets about 600 people watching him, I'm afraid. Not too popular in Edinburgh.
David, we really appreciate the time. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Hey, say hi to Simmer as well. He was a great player in Sheffield. He came over and played 3 seasons with us. A quality person, very, very highly thought of over here. And, of course, even for a guy who was only 5'2", managed to get himself involved in a bench clearance.
We'll pass it along. Thanks, Dave.
Take care.
That is David Simms, and now I've just realized that the only thing that's better than listening to him call that brawl is to having him on the show to talk about it. I think that's probably safe to say. Wow. I knew that name, Brett Yeager, sounded familiar. Played in Drayton Valley Thunder for 2 years, went to the Dub for a while, and then ended up back in Drayton Valley, I believe, in his 20-year-old season. So a lot of Canadian content involved in that wild, wild brawl. And if you're wondering what fight we were talking about, you've probably seen it on TSN and Sportsnet over the last couple of days, but it is on the team1260.com. Click on the Nielson and Chase show page.
It's a beauty.
I like how he took a shot at Simpson at the end. Yeah, he's only 5'2", but he played pretty good. How come Simpson hasn't told us about winning this Grand Slam over there? Can't believe Simpson hasn't brought that up. We might have a little bit of time for Ken Simpson just after 9 o'clock before Michael Bisping comes in today, and maybe we will get to that as well.